With 2025 now behind us, I wanted to go over my favourite films of the year. There will be a few disclaimers as I go through the films. The first is that I haven't seen every notable release of 2025. There are still a few 2025 films on my watch list, and I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of them eventually made it onto my best of the year list. The second is that the UK film release schedule differs slightly from the US and international schedule. This is mainly due to BAFTA eligibility rules that mean that some of the awards contenders that come out in November and December in North America come out in January in the UK. Films like Hamnet, No Other Choice, My Father's Shadow, The Secret Agent, and Surat are all 2026 releases here in the UK. There are also films on my list that were released in 2024 in the US but didn't come to the UK until the start of 2025. Before I get into the list proper, I wanted to quickly cover some honorary mentions. So many excellent films were released in 2025 that it would be a shame not to mention them briefly. Harvest, a striking and visually stunning slow burn of a film set in the pre-modern Scottish countryside. Ritual, community, violence, and the murmurings of capitalism battle in this earthy and sometimes savage tale. Holy Cow, an incredibly endearing coming-of-age film. I never thought I'd be so invested in the transformation of a teenage troublemaker into an artisan cheesemaker, but here we are. Marty Supreme. There are so many things to like about Marty Supreme that I wondered at one point if it was even possible for everything to come together. That the film has such a satisfying and cathartic ending is testament to the high-wire act achieved by all involved. Solomon's Story. This is a seemingly simple and naturalistic drama that finds poignance and empathy by looking at the everyday actions of a migrant desperately trying to hold his life together. It climaxes in an asylum interview that might be one of the most tense and emotional scenes you'll see all year. Vermigulo, a contender for the most visually stunning film of the year. Set in the quiet Italian mountains, it's a film that patiently observes the shifting nature of the family at its centre, finding meaning and emotion in their daily actions and life decisions. Now for the top 10 list itself. The films will be in alphabetical order, but I will let you know which film of 2025 is my favourite as we go along. The list starts with Babygirl. I've already shared a couple disclaimers, and this entry comes with another. I had a small operation at the start of last year, the kind where I was back at work within a few days. It meant that I had to take things easy for a couple weeks, and going to the cinema was one of the few things I could go out and do. I went to the cinema quite a few times during this period and really enjoyed each film I saw. I suspect that my enjoyment of these films was aided by the painkillers I was on at the time. I'd planned to rewatch Babygirl before the end of the year to see if it held up, but if I'm honest, I am a little scared to. I genuinely loved Babygirl when I saw it. It was one of my favourite cinema trips of 2025, and at least for now I'd like to maintain my view of the film. A rewatch and reappraisal can come at a later date. For the sake of this list, I wanted to make the best case argument for Babygirl being a truly excellent film. I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt and genuinely argue for its inclusion in a best of the year list. It is curious that over the last couple of years that the erotic thriller has made a tentative re-emergence. After decades where barely any erotic thrillers were made, Challengers, Love Lies Bleeding, and Babygirl have all shown that there may be life in the genre once more. Of course, the world has changed a lot in the last 30 years. The gender politics of today are very different from those of the 1980s. Rewatching films like Fatal Attraction, it is strange to see how often career-minded women are the villains of these films. It's a trope that has been criticised for demonising independent career women who do not fit within traditional family and societal structures. It begs the question, what would a modern erotic thriller look like? Babygirl can be seen as the answer to this question. Babygirl exists in a grey area of moral ambiguity, combining modern issues like age gaps and the promotion of women into corporate leadership roles with the drama of desire and power play. In this sense, the erotic thriller is the perfect genre for modern times. It has always been excellent at exploring the taboo and revealing power dynamics, and watching Babygirl, we see how both of these things can be interlaced within modern society. Whether Babygirl will hold up to rewatches in the years to come is yet to be seen, but I do hope it kickstarts a revival in erotic thrillers. Begonia. This might actually be my favourite Yorgos Lanthimos film. It is the third film Lanthimos has made in 3 years. Many will prefer the more ornate Poor Things, but I personally prefer the strange, almost nightmarish energy of Begonia. At this stage, I think we all have a pretty good idea of what a Yorgos Lanthimos film looks like, but I actually think we don't give him enough credit for twisting his style to fit each film. With Begonia, the fisheye shots of The Favourite and the ornate design of Poor Things give way to a more paranoid and alienating aesthetic. It results in a potent film that is as visually memorable as anything Lanthimos has ever directed. It'll probably take me another watch to really decide how I feel about Begonia as a satire. My initial reaction to the ending was that the film was trying to have it both ways, that making Emma Stone's Michelle an alien part and Jesse Plemons' Teddy of his crazed and questionable actions. Maybe the messaging of Begonia is a little muddled, or maybe it is revealing my own prejudices and blinkered mindset. Perhaps Begonia isn't about one side being right, but about a broader collective insanity. Maybe those of us with respectable corporate jobs pretending that the world is okay are just as crazy as conspiracy theorists operating out of their basements. Either way, this is another excellent film from Lanthimos. The Brutalist. This is a strange thing to say about a film that received a string of 5-star reviews and awards attention, but I actually think The Brutalist is underrated. Whenever you see discussions about this film online, the general consensus is that it is overlong and overrated. On first viewing, I probably fell into this camp myself. I thought it was certainly a good film, but a fair distance off great. On second viewing, I found it much more balanced and emotionally resonant. The first half felt more bittersweet, and knowing how things ended, the second was less oppressively bleak. When a film is 3.5 hours long, I get that some will call for the runtime to be justified and claim that anything short of an epic masterpiece a disappointment. Only time will tell if The Brutalist will enter the pantheon of great films, but for now, I think we should appreciate everything the film does so well. It is a film that feels vast. It creates a world you feel a part of while watching it. Director Brady Corbett brilliantly manages to combine a sense of awe in the beautifully shot surroundings with a sense of dread for hardships both past and present. Adrian Brody has an incredibly expressive face, and you can feel Laszlo Toth's struggle as he battles for a place in the world. If rumours are to be believed, Corbett's next film will be even longer and even more ambitious. On the evidence of The Brutalist, he may just have the ability to pull it off. The Girl with the Needle. I was a little unsure about The Girl with the Needle after watching it. This wasn't because of its bleak tone and subject matter, but that I struggled to figure out what it was trying to say. There is an excellent sight and sound review that helped me better consider the film, in particular the line, Magnus von Horn isn't making a social treatise, but an adult fairy tale. After looking at the film this way, I stopped comparing it with social realist abortion dramas, and instead with German Expressionism, Todd Browning, Dickens and the original Brothers Grimm fairy tales, which are much darker than the Disney adaptations they have inspired. If there is a social statement to be found in the film, it probably falls within the Dickensian tradition of normal people drawn into dark and cruel circumstances by an uncaring society. It depicts a world where there is no social safety nets and where misfortune can lead to abject poverty and ruin. This is a bold and troubling film that will linger with anyone who watches it. I'm Still Here. Few films stuck with me in 2025 like I'm Still Here. It is hard to sum up a story as beautifully told as this one. Alfonso Cuarón said of the film, watching a Walter Salles film is to be embraced in generosity, is like experiencing a gravitational pull, both lifting and grounding us at the same time. I'm Still Here has a rare wisdom, built on an understanding of both its characters and the world that they inhabit. Plenty of films have portrayed the horror of a traumatic event. Few have lingered with those living in its wake, following them as their feelings evolve and the realization that life will never be the same sets in. I've never seen the hardship of those left behind as beautifully rendered as it is in this film. There is a tendency for those of us from Europe to watch South American films and make broad proclamations about the countries that they depict. One of the joys of a film like I'm Still Here is its specificity, the unique feelings that it conjures. Trying to articulate these feelings is at best reductive. This is a film to be experienced. It was just an accident. At this point, it feels almost impossible to discuss this film without mentioning Jafar Panahi's turbulent relationship with the Iranian state. Since 2000, he has seen his films routinely banned in Iran, and in 2010 he received a 6-year prison sentence and a 20-year ban from filmmaking. Despite this, Panahi has kept working and has now made more films illegally, out of the sight of the Iranian authorities than legally. In some ways, these details are just context, a good story to accompany the film, but I personally think there is a deeper reason why film fans and critics keep bringing them up. At a time when the value and importance of cinema is routinely questioned, Panahi is the living embodiment of cinema's ability to speak truth to power and the artistic drive to create no matter the opposition. It Was Just an Accident would be an excellent film without this context, but Panahi's life experience does make it feel even more urgent. In one sense, this is a revenge tale, but in a greater sense, it is a film that wrestles with its own conscience, that searches for answers in a pool of cruelty and corruption. Few films are this tense, this morally ambiguous. It gives a sense of individuals and a society more broadly coming to terms with the brutality and injustice of an oppressive regime. It's a film that shows just how complex notions of morality and justice truly are. Revenge might bring a moment of catharsis, but could also bring a much more prolonged regret. Should repressed individuals forcefully push back against their oppressor, or should they shun violence? I'm not sure Panahi knows the answers to these questions. If I had to pick one film as my favorite of the year, it would be this one, One Battle After Another. It's indicative of just how acclaimed One Battle After Another is that I feel almost offensive saying that it's just one of my favorite films of the year rather than my categoric number one pick. This is the consensus pick for film of the year, and I wouldn't argue too much with this. I mentioned in my Paul Thomas Anderson deep dive that I knew that this film was very good, but that it would take time for me to decide if it was truly great. This is still the case. For now at least, I would place it below films like There Will Be Blood, The Master and Phantom Thread. Given how many brilliant films Paul Thomas Anderson has made, this is still a very high compliment. Where films like There Will Be Blood and The Master are character studies that allude to broader political messages, One Battle After Another looks at how relationships and lives are disrupted by the political situations around them. It raises the question of how do we engage with the world around us? Do we numb ourselves with drugs and alcohol like Bob Ferguson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, or do we wage war with the world and have to live in exile like Perfidia, played by Tiana Taylor? In truth, neither of these approaches seem productive. Perhaps Sergio, a karate teacher played by Benicio del Toro, is the best example for us to follow. It is only alluded to in passing, but he is providing refuge for a community of undocumented migrants, not just giving them somewhere to sleep, but also protecting them from the authorities. In one battle after another, the best kind of political action is shown to be caring for your loved ones and supporting your community, whatever that might look like. I actually see the title as optimistic. The world may not be the place we want it to be, but the battle isn't over, and there'll be plenty more opportunities to challenge power and change the world for the better. Sinners. This is a strange thing to say about one of the most acclaimed films of the year, but I think the critical reception of Sinners was a little unfair. Many of the reviews are what I'd refer to as copy. What I mean by that is they were more concerned with film industry trends than the film itself. It meant that discussions surrounding Sinners were overly focused on the ongoings at Warner Brothers and the state of original, non-IP filmmaking than the craft and ideas that define the film. If anything, the framing of these conversations should be flipped. Ryan Coogler is someone who has grown and excelled within the franchise model and has taken the lessons he's learned telling big, accessible stories and applied them to Sinners. This is a film that looks at race, exploitation, religion, the spiritual power of music, and the fight for black identity and autonomy. These are weighty ideas that are not a natural fit for blockbuster cinema. That Coogler is able to treat these issues with the seriousness that they deserve, while also making Sinners one of the most thrilling and entertaining films of the year, is testament to his talents as a filmmaker. It is a rare trick to pull off and has resulted in a film that has caught cinemagoers' imaginations like few others. 28 years later. As someone who likes but doesn't love 28 Days Later, and as someone who likes but doesn't love Danny Boyle as a director, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed this film. It is thrilling and tense in a way that few films this year were. Danny Boyle and writer Alex Garland have spoken in detail about the film's themes, but I actually think it works best on an experiential level. I can see what they're getting at when they speak about the film relating to the political and cultural detachment seen in the UK following Brexit and COVID. I can also see how the island community's nostalgia for the myths of a misremembered past relates to the current political climate, but it was the thrilling filmmaking that appealed to me most. When 28 Years Later was first announced, it was easy to feel cynical about it. We live at a time when disappointing legacy sequels are far too common. This could easily have been a lazy rehash of 28 Days Later, exploiting the love of the original film, but instead we get something striking, impeccably made, and thoughtful. There are films on this list that I would need to be in the right mood to rewatch, but I would rewatch 28 Years Later in a heartbeat. It might actually be my favourite Danny Boyle film, as much as that might irk fans of Trainspotting. After Yesterday, which felt like an awkward fit for Boyle, it is a pleasure to see him so energised and willing to experiment again. It has been a pleasure going over my favourite films of the year. Do share your favourites with us. I'll be interested to see how our lists differ. I'm very much looking forward to the year ahead and can't wait to see all the excellent films that will be released.